welcome to Insight. I'm Natasha Jhabhaskar. The ties between India and Nepal reached a low during a recent standoff after agitating Madhesi-based political parties staged protests and demonstration at key Nepal-India entry points that made India cut off supplies of fuel and other commodities due to security reasons. India is the first country to reach out to the new Communist Prime Minister KP Oli at a time when ties between Nepal and India have been termed as strained and difficult, particularly after promulgation of the new constitution in Nepal last month. India has always said that there should be broad-based consensus on the charter so that all types of stakeholders can own it up. The Nepal Prime Minister said that he wants to see and develop better relations with India, with whom Nepal shares common culture and history. In today's edition of Insight, I'm discussing Nepal crisis and what's the way forward. Joining me on the program today, very esteemed guest, Professor Sreeram Chaulia, Dean at Jindal School of International Affairs. Thank you very much, Professor Chaulia, for joining us in this program. Professor Chaulia, your reactions on the way India has responded so far on the constitution, on Nepali constitution. Also, how do you really assess? Because is it really a historical moment for Nepali politics?
Well, I think first of all, our public diplomacy has been poor. The messaging has not gone out well enough. It's not enough for us to say, for example, that we are not blockading. The point is the rumor mills are agog, and even the mainstream Nepalese Congress is pro-India. Their activists are on the street saying that down with Indian imperialism. So suddenly we have this image, attack on our image as not so benign. And the way we have responded, I think, be it the ministry or our top politicians, we have not been able to really assuage these fears. It's not simple to say that the trucks are not going across the border because of the turmoil on the other side. The priority is we need to have substantive rebuttals, and we didn't do it. And therefore, go on Twitter, go on public sphere, go on the media, and unfortunately, even our media, I won't name there was a newspaper which even came out with a report that we have given a 7-point ultimatum and the Nepalese have to conform to it. Right. So the ministry then said, no, we never gave anything so specific. But the point is, the damage is already done, right? So I think we have not done our, the gap between the perception and reality is very high about India's role in our neighbors, in our immediate neighborhood. So Prime Minister Modi had done great work for two visits to Nepal, and it was looking like finally, we have a thing
grand
going
reception
there.
in Nepal and declaring a $1 billion credit line.
Even the Maoists seem to have been turning, and rethinking afresh in a positive light about India. And now suddenly, in a month and a half, we have lost a lot of goodwill and capital. And it's not because we have done something wrong. I agree with my predecessors. But what I'm trying to say is that it's also about being seen to be doing the right thing.
Right.
And there, there's a gap. So the message is that India is somehow stoking the Madhesis. We are somehow arming or covertly financing or supporting them and creating some kind of dissent in the society, or worse.
And lobbying, or we have our own agenda in Nepal.
So we've been scapegoated for a domestic issue, basically in Nepal, where there is social fissures and there's been discrimination. But the point is, we need to have come out of this and said that we've been scapegoated. It's not the fact. We need to put it out better.
Okay, Professor Chaulia, at this stage with the new Prime Minister in Nepal, also President election to happen on 27th of October, where hopefully, as what reports say, it should be
the Speaker of the
Speaker of the
President is later.
Okay, I stand corrected there. So at this stage, how do you see that the political establishment really taking up the grievances and really sorting out the issues that exist, the sort of political consensus which is missing and instability which Nepal is facing at this stage?
I'm not very hopeful that they will really be able to do justice to all the marginalized minorities, because you see the concept of Nepalese nationalism. It's emerged from this Bahun Chetri, the dominant hill castes, and they have always viewed the plain dwellers as not really fully loyal to Nepal, and that's the you can call it a kind of a racism that's deeply embedded. So because of that, I don't think so. There will be some obviously compromises, but not to the necessary extent of creating full ethnic justice in the society. So I think Oli is going to be pragmatic. He has also gotten some votes from Madhesi parties to be able to become Prime Minister. So to that extent he will. But there's also the Chinese angle. I mean, let's not forget it. The Chinese side of the trade, border trade, had been cut off due to the earthquake, and it's just reopened this week.
Right.
And the Chinese are saying there's going to be explosive growth in terms of trade. They are smelling an opportunity, but because of the perceived so-called Indian imperialism, which is now being talked about, that they can actually make more inroads,
right.
And therefore although the Himalayan passes are not as geographically conducive for fuel and such things to come through. But remember, the Chinese have done miraculous things in terms of building roads and highways, even the highest altitudes.
Mm-hmm.
So from Tibet, they may be eyeing. So there's also a geostrategic problem here
Mm-hmm.
for India, which is that we need to. So the Nepalese, some sections of the Nepalese elites are saying we'll do airlifts and break the Indian blockade, so-called Indian blockade. So I think we have serious problems. So which way Oli is also always going to, as a small nation, sandwiched between China and India, they've always tried to play off one against the other.
Right, and we have seen this happening earlier
so
also.
it's a simple test for our diplomacy, how we can maintain our special relationship while at the same time disabusing the notion that it's some kind of domination.
Professor Chaulia, what according to you are actually our major drawbacks as far as our policy towards Nepal is concerned?
Well, I think we should not fall into the trap of being advocates of one ethnic cluster. That's important. We should support a kind of a development of a civic nationalism in Nepal that is indeed inclusive and goes beyond, so they need to walk the talk, and we must support those processes. I think there's also a role for Indian civil society to play there. It's not just a state-to-state relationship, especially because of the cross-border cultural and ethnic linkages. Hopefully, once this Bihar election is sorted out, we should actually, for example, it's a fact that most transition societies that come out of long autocracy do pass through these phases of ethnic mobilization. And it's very difficult to actually prevent ethnic polarization and sometimes spilling into violence. So I hope Prashant is wrong that there may be a militant movement coming, but if that is the case, we should be able to preempt it through Gandhian techniques. We've always had their intellectuals and their grassroots workers always derived inspiration from us.
Right.
And therefore I think there's a role for us to play constructively at the grassroots level, especially activating our conflict resolution groups which have been working in communal conflict and to douse ethnic conflict and tension within
So
our own
aspirations are, yes, Professor Chaulia.
Natasha, I think, Nepal, after the overthrow of monarchy, this is like the big inflection point, and it's a moment where we need nation building there. And therefore, I think India has a capacity as the only genuine federal democratic society where we have devolved power down the ranks and created states on linguistic basis and again accommodated so many interests.
Right.
It is really a time for us to step up the game in terms of intellectual sharing, in terms of civil society development, in terms of peace. And nation building can only happen if you do this larger grassroots effort.
Right.
It cannot just be KP Oli and Narendra Modi.
Final comments from you, Professor Chaulia. Indian diplomacy needs to do some serious homework.
Yeah, as I said, public diplomacy, the perceptions game, we need to arrest the slide. That's one, we need to invest much more. And secondly, we need to also show that there is an economic angle. Prime Minister talked about the Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal corridor. We need to, fast forward all these things now before it becomes too late, and when you have, a whole nation right across our border that could, be antagonistic to us. So we don't want to reach this stage.
Yeah.
And before that, we need to think hard, problematize. For example, Maldives, high priority. Nepal should be high priority. Places where we seem to be slipping. Now is the time not to sit back and to say we are doing the right thing.
It's the time to bounce back.
We seem to be doing the right thing, and now is the time for it.
Thank you very much, Professor Chaulia and Prashant, for joining us in this program, and that's all we have for you in another session of Insight. Thank you very much for watching. Namaskar.